Is up and happy Monday. I wanted to take a moment here to talk about reframing your mind and clearing the mind because honestly, I feel like this has been going on for years, right? Our attention has been so scattered. I remember hearing a study from Microsoft back in like 2015 that our attention span is shorter than a goldfish. And that was like 10 years ago. And these days, with everything that's going on in the world, we could call it politics, we could call it the addiction to our phones, and all these things. It's like we are totally just lost in our heads, just all these thoughts, and we're scattered and all of that. But I wanted to teach you something so that not only can you reframe what's coming into your mind, but also how to process your thoughts and your feelings in as little as 90 seconds. Now, this is backed by science. You might be thinking, wait, you're telling me that you can clear the mind in just 90 seconds? There's no way. Or if I'm processing emotion, let's call it grief or anger or whatever it is, I can move through that in less than 2 minutes. Yes, this is true. And I know it works because I've used the 90-second rule on myself for the past few years, as well as teaching it to my clients. Now, here's the science of it. For those of you that are into TED Talks, you might be familiar with Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor. She had a TED Talk back in 2008, and her TED Talk was so popular that it's actually what catapulted the success of the TED brand. And Dr. Jill's TED Talk was also so what's the word I'm looking for? Profound that Time named her to one of the most influential people back in 2008. Her TED Talk, I believe it was called My Stroke of Insight. It's either My Stroke of Insight or My Stroke of Genius. I believe it's My Stroke of Insight. But you can Google Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor TED Talk and you can find it right there. And one of the things that she talked about that doesn't get enough attention is something she discovered called the 90-second rule. And I'll back up for a moment here. I said Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor, but that could be any kind of doctor, right? She's a neuroanatomist, meaning that she studies the brain. In fact, in her TED Talk, she actually brought a real brain with the spinal cord as well, or the brain stem coming down onto the stage as a live demonstration. And as a neuroanatomist, what she taught us is this 90-second rule that teaches that we can process our emotions in as little as 90 seconds. Now you're probably thinking, wait, I don't believe that no way, no way, because anytime in the past that I felt angry or I felt really sad, that led to depression, the anger led to rage, and then all of these things, right? Well, for most of us, because we're so distracted by what's going on in the world, with the news, with the politics, with sports, with our families, or with our business, or bills, materialism, consumerism, all of these things that are grabbing our attention, we don't know how to actually be with our thoughts and our feelings. So when you are experiencing an emotion that is not a happy emotion, let's call it something that's denser, it's heavier, this would be grief, sadness, anger, even fear, any of these sorts of emotions in that category that you kind of push away from. Well, what happens is your body has a 90-second physiological response, meaning that you get flooded with all of these different chemicals and endorphins. And oftentimes we start to disconnect. We start to disassociate from what we're feeling because it doesn't feel good. So we'll do anything to not feel that. So since we are not allowing ourselves to feel what's happening in our body, then we get caught in a mental loop where we keep replaying the story, the narrative, whatever was happening over and over and over again. And that is why we cannot process our emotions in as little as 2 minutes. Now, it's important to also say that emotions are energy in motion. That's not just like this like little hippie type saying or anything like that. Like the root word or the root meaning of emotion is emotion. The E stands for energy, energy in motion. So if you take that and you take the 90-second rule, it's like, oh, wow, these emotions are designed to move through me. But when we don't allow ourselves to feel those emotions, then those energies get stuck and they get stored in the body. And that's what manifests as disease, dis-ease. Think about lower back pain. So many people suffer from lower back pain. I used to suffer from lower back pain, like chronic lower back pain, but I haven't had lower back pain in about 4 years because I really went into the depths of those different energies that were stored there. And lower back pain is usually tied to like stability, or if you feel supported, or maybe fears and worries around money. But it's not just lower back pain. Like think of something that is going on in your life where you have this recurring pain in your body. Most likely it anchored to a certain emotion. So when you start allowing yourself to feel emotions, not only can you process them in as little as 90 seconds, let's just call it 2 minutes, but also for these more ongoing situations in your life where you're feeling pain in your body, you can move through those feelings as well. So, how do we actually reconnect with our thoughts and feelings? That's obviously the burning question here, because if when we feel an emotion, we're so used to staying in that activate or that triggered state, how do we actually allow ourselves to feel them? Well, first, we have to clear our mind. And the way I like to do this is through a simple 6 step process. And once you learn about this process, 6 steps is nothing at all. It starts to become automatic for you, it starts to become second nature. And these 6 steps are what I call the breath process. So it'll look like this: you experience an emotion that typically you wouldn't want to feel. Now you're going to reframe your mind. You're going to be like, wow, this is amazing that I built awareness in this moment to feel this thing, because now I have the opportunity to move through it. And that helps you to not get lost in the story, the narrative, or whatever is going on with the emotion that is coming up for you. So, the very first step in the breath process: breathe. Breathe to slow down. Because when you start to breathe, you start to reconnect with your body. And what happens when we experience an emotion that we don't want to feel? Well, typically we shorten our breath, we hold our breath. So, what it looks like is just intentional inhales and exhales. It's not about like doing any crazy breath work practice, it's just inhaling up and exhaling out. Just be like, okay, I experience this emotion. I feel like I'm in an activated state, a charged state that doesn't feel good. Number one, reframe that and celebrate that, because you just built awareness around it. So now you can respond as opposed to react. And then as you're doing that, start to breathe. So you're slowing everything down. Moving into the second step, are in breath process. Relax to feel. Because often what happens when this is new for us is we'll start to breathe, we'll start to slow down, and then we're just like, okay, how long is this going to take? We're lost in the monkey mind, like just thinking about something, right? Or we're still replaying the story. So by relaxing into the sensations that you're feeling, you begin to reassociate back into your body. The third step, the E in the breath process, is energy to reveal. And this is what, I would consider as shadow work. And the shadow is a term that was coined by the Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung back years and years ago. And the idea is to make what's unconscious or subconscious to conscious awareness. And to understand that, we have to understand that our subconscious mind or unconscious mind makes up 95% of our awareness. And that is everything that we don't have access to. And think about it this way: we are processing, I don't know how they came up with this number, but somewhere between 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. 80% of those thoughts are from the day before, and 90% of those thoughts are negative. So if we don't do our shadow work and bring the unconscious to conscious awareness, then we're basically just living on a negative perpetuating feedback loop from the day before. So, in this third step of the breath process, remember, as a refresher, we're just breathing and then we're relaxing. Now we enter the shadow work, energy to reveal. If emotions are energy in motion, then we just simply ask ourselves, what is this energy revealing to me? Because if we want to move through this, we have to be with the energies. The avoidance of the energy that keeps us in the mental loop. So that's the third step. The fourth step is the A in the breath process, and this is accept to surrender. And the reason why this is so important is because when we really begin to do our shadow work and ask ourselves, like, hey, what is this energy, this emotion that I'm feeling, or this thought form that is coming up for me? What is it revealing? Most of us are like, oh, no, I don't want to see that. I don't want it, because it's too tough to be with. That's why we have the same story over and over. You'll notice that with yourself and those closest to you, there's usually one or two main emotions that are really driving a person when it comes to denser and heavier emotions. It might be sadness for some people, and it might be anger for other people. It can be all these different emotions, right? But usually it's the same ones that are coming up. Like for me, I'm someone who never really had anger issues. Maybe when I was like young, but for the past, I don't know, 20 years, my whole life, actually, I would say my emotions that I'd have to sit with were more depressive type stuff. So sadness. So when I started to do this shadow work and really be with the sadness, then I was able to move through it. Now you might be thinking, okay, that's not really me. I don't really identify with depression or sadness. Like I'm a hothead, and I typically get angry really quickly. And that's my point. Each of us have one emotion that we're usually working with. And when we start to be with these emotions, we can start to ask ourselves these questions like, hey, what's this energy revealing to me? So remember, the fourth step is accept to surrender, because you have to surrender to them so that you can move through them. Now, the fifth step of the breath process is the T in breath. And this is transform into empowering beliefs, because it's not enough to just like surrender to these emotions and be like, okay, I accept what's coming up and I understand the story. Now it's like, no, now we have to alchemize it. We have to transform it into a higher vibration, if you will. So what transform into empowering beliefs is it's super simple. It's just utilizing the power of affirmations. And affirmations should be said in I am statements. And the reason is because if you say I will be, like if you're someone who's dealing with anger, right? I am at peace. Maybe that will be your affirmation. But if you were to say I will be at peace, your subconscious mind is creating your reality straight up. And your subconscious mind is also like a 5-year-old. So when it hears I will be, it hears, oh, okay, I will be. So that means I am not currently. So I will give you more experiences of not having that thing, which is why it's so imperative to say I am affirmations in the current state. And the final process, or the final step of the breath process, is the H. This is habits to integrate. So this is super simple. It's as a result of what came up for me, what new actions, habits, or behaviors will I take to integrate this into my lifestyle? Because I tell people all the time, like, hey, I don't want you to continuously come back to the breath process. What this is about is making positive changes in your life. So as a result of doing your shadow work, being with those different stories or narratives that came up and transforming them into empowering, what are you going to do so that you can embody what came up for you, so you're not just like on this hamster loop chasing all the time? So that is the breath process. That is the easiest way that you can apply the 90-second rule. Because a lot of times, like, listen, I think about these things a lot. I'll learn something like, watching this TED talk and the 90-second rule, and we can process emotions in real time. And it's like, damn, that's good to know. That's cool. But how do I do it? Right. And I think it's so important that for those of us that are on the path of self development or spiritual development, or just like, working ourselves to be a more whole and complete and fulfilled human, it's not just about learning the thing, it's about applying the thing and understanding a simple framework so that you can apply it in real time and make it yours. Now, I know the 6 steps can be a lot when you are first hearing it for the first time. So think about it this way: if you're going to take anything away from this at all, write this down. When you feel an emotion, remember emotions are energy in motion. Remember the 90-second rule that backs that up. And then write this down: breathe, feel, think intentionally. That's it. Those are the 3 themes of the 90-second rule of how I move through it. The 3 themes of the breath process: breathe to allow yourself to slow down to feel them, and then feel, allow yourself to feel the different emotions and start to do your shadow work. Ask yourself, what is this energy revealing to me? Surrender to it. And then move forward thinking intentionally. That's the positive affirmations and what new habits, actions, or behaviors you'll take in your life. So if you dug this and you can see how this is going to help you to clear your mind and you want to learn more about how you can go deeper, I have a challenge coming up next week. It starts on Monday, March 10th, 2025, and it's at 9 a.m. Pacific time. And each day for 3 days, we'll meet at 9 a.m. Pacific for an hour, where I'm going to be not only teaching you education around your nervous system and how to process thoughts and feelings so that you can clear your mind to feel your best, but also teaching you breath work with real live breath work practices together. So if that's something you're interested, comment breathe below or wherever you're watching this so I can get you the link, or go directly to samkabert.com/mine and you can find all the information there. Now, this 3-day challenge is a paid challenge. It's just $22. I'm basically giving all this away. Like, for $22, you're going to learn so much and you're going to have an online community to grow with as well. So if this is resonating with you, join the challenge. I'll see you there.